De Infinite Way, Joel S Goldsmith. Het tweede gedeelte van de klas die Joel op 12 augustus 1958 in Holland gaf.
And he receives these impartations. Now God isn't telling him about human error. God is imparting to him spiritual principles like resist not, so forth. But he interprets them in accord with the need of the moment and gives them to us for instruction. In other words, it is a spiritual truth that has been stepped down to human apprehension. It is probably like physics. You take all of these laws that we have, electricity, electronics, nuclear. Basically, they existed as laws. And they're laws of God. But God didn't make nuclear fission to destroy cities or innocent people. So there we have spiritual laws grasped by humans and misused. That's what caused Albert Einstein's death. When he learned the great power of nuclear fission and the smashing of the atom, he knew that good men could make boats that would go under the North Pole, airplanes that would fly in the air. In fact, it would take all the labor off man's backs. Never again would there be men down in coal mines. Never again would there have to be men out under the hot sun giving up their lives for a few dollars. But he also knew that the evil man could misuse that power. And so he sent for the President of the United States, and he said, I have this secret, but I will give it up only in exchange for a promise that it will never be used destructively. And he received that promise, and the next day the promise was broken. And he died, Mr. Einstein, with a broken heart. Left this as a written message. Well, and she learned and practiced and proved that a mind imbued with truth could destroy sin, disease, and death. There was nothing of a spiritual nature. Here was a human body filled with sin, disease, or death, and a mind, her mind, or yours or mine, imbued with truth, could remove that. And on that basis, she healed and did beautifully. But then one day, she woke up to a very sad fact. Some of her students had discovered that the same mind, turning the truth upside down, could do evil with it. And they were. And so she wrote a chapter called Demonology for her early book, in which she told the story of some of her students who were using the power of mind destructively. They were using it not only to make people sick so that they would come and get more treatments, they were using it to make them bring more money to them too, and for other purposes. And so she wrote a chapter warning about it. And for that reason, even to this day, in the latest edition of Miscellaneous Writings, you will find a sentence that says, the same mind that can do good can do evil. You wouldn't believe that, would you? That the same mind that can do good can do evil. It depends on how you use it. Yeah? Now, if you are in the physical realm, you can take any piece of matter or any piece of material thing or any material law, and you can use it for good and you can use it for evil. They're even pumping the germs of diseases into us to cure them, to cure the diseases. They are now using the germs of cancer to cure polio. Do you understand what I mean? That you can use matter for good or for evil, so you can mind. You can use your mind to bless, as these two girls that I spoke about. Or you can use the mind as we are using it here, to give out truth and receive truth. Because don't doubt for a minute, this truth, although it's spiritual, is coming through my mind. And you are receiving it in your mind. Later, when it goes down to the level of your soul, it will jump up with healings. While it stays in the level of your mind, it will not produce very much in the way of healing. It's when it becomes conviction. Now then, when we receive then an inspiration, as far as God is concerned, it's pure and good and holy. And it has for its being the harmony of the entire spiritual kingdom. But when it is filtered down into the mind of a person who knows good and evil, then it says, choose ye this day whom you will serve, good or evil. And you'll find out that the very powers that you can use for evil, you can use for good, and the powers you can use for good, you can use for evil. Now that exists only until you come to the place that I'm telling you about in the infinite way, where you consciously give up the powers of good and evil, where you agree there are no powers except God. Then you don't use truth. Because if you did, you could use it to suit your sense of good and evil. And sometimes you'd use it for what you think is good and it would turn out evil. Oh, yes, there have been lots of parents that have ruined their children's lives, by being too good to them. Or what they thought was good. There again, their concept of good. Now, when you come to where we are in the infinite way, you no longer have a choice, because you are not using any powers, either for good or for evil. You have given up the use of powers, and you have settled yourself back into the realization God alone is power. I can't use God, I can let that power use me. Then it can't be used two ways. See the difference? God can't use power two ways. Therefore, if we stop using power and let the power of God flow through us, there can be no evil. That's why a person, if they really catch the message of the infinite way, there cannot be sin, there cannot be disease, there cannot be selfishness, there cannot be hate, envy, jealousy, malice. Those things cannot exist in them because they've given up that self. And they're letting the God self express itself. It isn't as if they were expressing God. Oh no. Then again you'd have your choice. Shall I express God or shall I express devil? No. You are not expressing God. You are letting God express itself in you and through you and as you. You see that? That's where we are. When we sit down to give a treatment, we don't give you a treatment. We don't even ask the name of the patient. We don't even ask the disease that the patient thinks he's got. We aren't interested in symptoms or diagnosis. We aren't even interested in whether it's a man or a woman or a child or a person 9 years of age or 99. That doesn't enter into our work at all. Our work, when you ask for help, is to sit down and be still and let the Spirit of God flow. That's all. That's all. Let it flow. Because it is the all-knowing mind that knows where and how to flow and what to do. Because it is divine love, it does reach those who have reached out for it. You might wonder, how is it then that it reaches you? It reaches you because you made the contact. If you wrote to me, or if you spoke to me, or telegraphed, or cabled, or telephoned, or even if you sat in your room and just said, well, Joel, here I am, you have made contact. Because it isn't this body that helps you, and it isn't this brain. It is that part of me which is omnipresent. It's the soul of me. And so it is with you. I don't have to know anything about you humanly, because all through my writings you will read that I don't know how to heal. And don't think that that's false modesty, because it isn't. I don't know how to heal. I know nothing about healing. I do know this, that all that appears in this world as human good or evil is illusion. It isn't illusion out there, it's illusion in the mind of the person who's beholding it. Out there is the temple of the living God. Out there, I would have to say with Peter, ye are the Christ, the Son of the living God. I know you. And your body is the temple of the living God, because I'm seeing out through my soul faculties. I'm not looking out through my human eyesight and judging by appearances. Do you see that? Now, you will find, as you continue in the study of Infinite Way writings, you will find a little exercise that all of our students go through. Look down at your feet and ask yourself the question, are you down there in your feet? And see what kind of an answer you get for yourself. And then go on up to your knees and ask yourself again, am I down there? And go up to your waist, and go up to your chest, and go up to your head, and go all the way up to the top of you, and ask yourself, am I there? And you'll come up with a realization before you're through that there isn't any place from your toenails to the topmost part of your hair where you are. No surgeon could find you there, because you aren't there. And the minute you realize that, you begin to see the secret of your true identity. Because you have thought, when you looked in the mirror, that you were seeing you. And now you'll know that you never have seen you in a mirror, because you aren't there. You've seen your body. But that's different than you. See that? That's different than you. And as you travel up and down your body several times, you really finally come to the awareness, I'm really not here. I'm really not here. There's no such thing as a me inside this frame. And then you'll know why it is that absent treatment is successful. Because there is no absent treatment. Wherever you are, I am. And wherever I am, you are. Because none of us is confined in a body. None of us is confined in a country called Holland or the United States. No. None of us is confined in the earth or in the air. I fill all space, and so do you. There's only one eye. There are not 50 eyes in this room. There's only one eye, and I am that one. When you reach out for help, I am that one. When I respond, I am that one. For that one isn't a man named Joel, that one is God. God is your true identity, and God is my true identity. And when you reach out to me, you reach out to God, But who do you think it is reaching out? God. That's oneness. One God. Thou shalt have only one God. And that one closer to you than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. So when you reach out to a practitioner for help, are you reaching out further than your own heart or breathing? No. No, not that you're inside here. That's only the idea of closeness, oneness. Closer to you than breathing, nearer than hands and feet am I. So when you reach out, you're reaching out to the infinity of your own being, appearing as Joel today, but somebody else will be reaching out to you tomorrow. When you have recognized your true identity, when you have stopped believing that you inhabit a carcass, a body. Do you see that? And when you realize that you are nowhere between the toenail and the topmost hair of the head, then you'll say, where am I? And then you'll say, I? Who? I? What did Moses find? I am that I am. I am. And from a shepherd boy, he becomes a leader. Jesus found the same thing, and from a carpenter, he became a savior. What was the difference between Jesus and all the other Hebrews at the temple in Jerusalem? He's the only one who discovered who I am. And that's why he could say to his disciples, whom do ye say that I am? And it took a Peter to finally realize, oh, have we been so long with you and have not realized? Thou art the Christ. Sure, and he was trying to make them awaken to see who they were. They didn't quite make the grade. So you see that God is in his heaven, and all is well with this world. But if you and I are not partaking of that wellness, then the secret is, ye must know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And the very first truth you have to know is there are not two powers. That's the whole world belief. Two powers. But the spiritual truth is, what did hinder you? Pick up your bed and walk. What power is the holding you down there? None. So come on, get up. But that man was suffering from a belief that disease is power. And so his belief kept him there, not the disease. And it wasn't his belief, it's a universal. And so with us. It is never your, don't ever malpractice anybody by saying that you are evil, or you are holding wrong thoughts, or you aren't loving enough, or you aren't just. Don't ever do that. You will make your patient twice as sick as they were before. Release everybody from condemnation and say there is no sin in you at all. I do not hold you in bondage, and I do not judge you or condemn you. I find no fault in you. You are perfect. Then what are we dealing with? A universal belief which you're accepting. Now give it up. Do you see that? His belief kept him there, not the disease. And it wasn't his belief, it's a universal. And so with us. It is never your, don't ever malpractice anybody by saying that you are evil, or you are holding wrong thoughts, or you aren't loving enough, or you aren't just. Don't ever do that. You will make your patient twice as sick as they were before. Release everybody from condemnation and say there is no sin in you at all. I do not hold you in bondage, and I do not judge you or condemn you. I find no fault in you. You are perfect. Then what are we dealing with? A universal belief which you're accepting. Now give it up. Do you see that? Don't make the metaphysical mistake of saying you should be more loving, you should be more grateful, you ought to attend church, you ought to read so many pages of my books. Don't ever do that, because you're putting the burden of guilt on innocent people. Every one of us is a victim of the universal belief in good and evil. And therefore, it isn't our wrong thinking. The man who steals, don't condemn him for being a thief. He isn't. There's a universal belief in lack, and at that moment he's a victim of it. You can help to free him by not calling him a thief, but by realizing you're not suffering from being a thief. You're suffering from these universal beliefs in two powers. You're suffering from the belief that you're a mortal who has to earn his living by the sweat of his brow. But I'll correct that for you and know for you that you are heir of God, joint heir with Christ, to all the heavenly riches. You do not have to labor for your bread or steal it. And so it is. The minute that you begin to release people from their own sins or mistaken impressions, false teachings, by never condemning them, never judging, never. When you're asked for help, even though something within you will tell you what the particular error is, don't pin it onto them. Don't do that. Realize it's a universal belief, not theirs. And you will be forgiving them. And you'll be releasing them from their sins. I learned a lot of this by being a Christian Science reader in prisons. And I learned that there is no such thing in prisons as bad men. Every single man in there is suffering from the belief that he's bad. And the judge that sentenced them believed it too. They weren't bad. Some of them were stupid. Some of them were ignorant of spiritual law. Some of them were even ignorant of how to earn a living. But they weren't bad. There wasn't one that I ever met that wanted to be a thief, if he was sane. Not a one. They were driven by some circumstance of the moment that threw them into that life. When we came along then and said, we're not here to reform you, we're here to reveal to you your true identity. You ought to see the difference in those men and know how quickly many of them went free. Just because condemnation was lifted from them. And they began to have respect for themselves and to believe that there was hope in the world. And I found in my healing practice that as long as I never held a person in condemnation to their sins or to their ignorance of truth, but always set them free in the realization, I know thee who thou art, the Christ, the Son of the living God, and even your body is the temple of the living God, and then realize whatever it is that's holding you in bondage isn't you, it's a belief that we have pinned on you. The world has pinned on you. That began to break it right there and then. Yes, the principles of the infinite way are not difficult. They are revolutionary, but they're not difficult. But they are difficult to put into practice because they contradict what we have heretofore known. Heretofore we've dealt with two powers. And now we've got to be able to learn to laugh at all negative powers and say, you fooled me enough generations. I really believed there were powers of lack or limitation. There were powers of sin or powers of disease. And now I know that there can't be a God and some other kind of a power. And as you do, you find yourself released from believing in two powers, and when you no longer believe in them, it's like no longer believing in ghosts. You don't see any anymore. As long as you believe in ghosts, there'll always be one turning up wherever you are. But the minute you see that there can't be ghosts, ghosts seem to leave your ken. So it is with this. In proportion as we can bring ourselves alive in the realization of God, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy soul, with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy being. How can you do all that and fear something else? That's not loving God. That's not even believing in a God of one power. Take these principles. You'll find many of them in the writings of the Infinite Way. They're always referred to as the correct letter of truth. Work with that correct letter of truth until it becomes a spirit of truth in you, the consciousness of truth, like this very one of I. Don't hesitate day after day to sit down for a few minutes and just examine your body and see if you really can find yourself inside of it. And one of these days it'll dawn on you, of course I'm not in there. Of course I'm not in there. Where could I be? And then you'll begin to realize you are as omnipresent as God is. And then you'll know why the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Because God is there. And it's the same way if your thought rests in Australia, that's where God is. Because you aren't outside of God. Well, you will have a good bit of reading to do in my writings to get acquainted with all of these principles. And as I've said, there are now many, many, many of my class tapes here in The Hague. And those of you who really want it can avail yourself of them and hear them. And whatever help any of us can be in this work, we're glad to do it. As you all know by now, Mrs. Van Aikman Bassett here is sort of a guiding light around this place, and was the one through whom I first came to Holland in this work. And all the work that I've given has been under her leadership, if you want to call it that, or direction, and always here in her home or a couple of times in a public hall. But with what we witness here this time, I do not hesitate in saying that by the next time I come, there'll have to be a larger place. And let us understand this before I leave you. I've said it before, I'm just repeating it. There is no infinite way organization. This work is carried on in the strangest way imaginable. I doubt that many of you could understand it or believe it, that nowhere in the world do we have an organization, that I just travel around with the organization under my hat. And I carry this word forward. Now, we have books that are published in the United States, some in California and some in New York, different publishers. And we have books that are published in London, some by George Allen Unwin and some by Ellen Fowler and Company, two publishers there. And then we have this Servier here in The Hague, who publishes The Infinite Way in Dutch. And he has another manuscript that he has not yet published. And in Switzerland, there's still another publisher who publishes The Infinite Way in German. I travel the entire United States and Canada, England, Scotland, Holland, Germany, Switzerland, and Sweden. North and South Africa, India, Australia, and New Zealand on a one-man circus. And I carry this message to groups like this. Groups that were never advertised for, that came together as this group comes together, without advertising, without being sent for, just because in one way or another, and sometimes in miraculous ways, they hear of it, receive some benefit, and then come. For many, many years, I also carried all of the healing work and did the practitioner work all around the globe. Fortunately, today we have some practitioners in the States and Canada and England here, and I'm being given a great deal of help in that direction, but there's still too much of that for me, and we need lots more practitioners. And again, they are not authorized practitioners in the sense that they carry a license or a designation or a title. The only way they attain it is the same way that I attained my place around the world, by consciousness. The very moment you have the consciousness that heals, you are a healer. The minute you have a consciousness that heals, people discover it. And they find you. They find you even if you're hiding away in Hawaii. They find you and send for you or write for you, because it's all a matter of consciousness. Nobody can make you a practitioner or a teacher. Only you can do that yourself. If I could ordain practitioners or license them, there would be no certainty that they'd ever heal anybody, because I have no power to make them healers. And authorizing them certainly doesn't make them healers. What makes them healers is their attaining the consciousness of one power, this consciousness of divine grace. When they have that, they're healers. And the world knows it and finds them. So it is. Our work is conducted in groups like this. Now, there are no limits to how many groups there can be in a city. There can be 100, 1,000, if there are that many people with a consciousness of wanting a group and of being able to maintain one. It's their consciousness that does it. It's not authorization. It's not permission. It's consciousness. We have in London, just pages and pages of places where there are tape recording groups, and all out from England, and all over the United States, Africa, and all over. And it's all accomplished that way. As soon as an individual realizes, this is my life, this is my work, first thing you know, they have a few people around them, and then they are a group. See that? And probably a group grows to be 20 or 30 or 40, and then somebody out in another neighborhood says, well, why should we come all the way in here? We'll get a tape recorder out here, and then a group forms out there. And that's how our works carry on. Totally unorganized. No memberships. Everyone free to expand in accordance with their own God-given desires. Well, of course, Mrs. Van Egmond here knows that this is always a joy to me to come and talk to our students. And you who are new to our work, I'm sure that it won't be long before you know what a great joy it is for me to share this and leave this with you, and then to pray every single day of the week that God open your consciousness to the truth of your own identity and of the only power there is, and that this power is closer to you than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. Blessings and thank you until we come again. God disclosed itself to us